Welcome to For Every Response, the podcast from Emergency Services Times, sponsored by MSA Safety. In this series, we bring you sessions from the Emergency Services Show and the Emergency Tech Show 2025. With AI fast becoming a big part of our lives, it's the same for the Fire and Rescue Service. In this episode, led by the National Fire Chiefs Council, discover what some services are doing now, what could be possible in the future, and what they've learned from other sectors.
We've got a fantastic panel for our next session, which is all about how AI is being used by the fire service. We have Callum from Leicestershire, Fire and Rescue, from Berkshire over there. We've got Frank, and Charlie is from AWS to talk about what they're doing with cloud services and AI support for the emergency services. So if I can begin with one of the firefighters by asking what you're doing and why, because it seems pretty simple. That's a fire, that's not a fire. What are you doing with AI?
Well, yes. So let me say, I suppose the first thing is, so I'm a group manager with Royal Berkshire, but I'm also the strategic lead for the NFCC. So that's kind of why I'm up here on the stage today. So fire goes, you're absolutely right. Putting wet stuff on hot stuff is our mantra, and very much, background and what we grew up with, and what we're very happy with when we get the chance. But I think it's fair to say fire and rescue services now are, have come a long way and have developed a long way over many decades from their inception, wherever that might have been. And of course, today it's as much about preventing, stopping fires from happening in the first place. And of course, when they do happen, being able to intervene as effectively as possible. And of course, that problem, like all problems, is about information, it's about understanding. And of course, what AI hopefully offers us a fantastic opportunity is to really help us understand the problems we have. And of course, fire, like any other type of sort of problem society, is actually quite complex. It's intimately tied to, social, economic, all the sort of drivers that we see for other societal problems. It's exactly the same for fire, even if the outcome is maybe, squirt some water on it. It's the same drivers behind it. And they are, by their nature, as complex as the system, and the system is our society. AI offers us that ability to maybe see things we never saw before, understand the problem like we've never really understood it before. And I think, I'll probably pass it to Callum at this point, in an increasingly challenging resourcing environment, understanding how best we can tackle those challenges most efficiently.
So Callum, can you pick up on that? How do you detect these problems early? How do you tackle them? What kinds of problems is AI spotting?
So there's many answers to this. I think the one that I'll come back, and it builds quite nicely from the previous presentation around AI potentially making people out of jobs or losing employment. All of the emergency services, fire service included, are very stretched at the moment. Capacity is probably one of our main challenges. So AI can alleviate some of that work, some of the back office stuff, some of the less complicated stuff, to free our wonderfully and highly trained staff up to be able to do what we want them to do, whether that's go out and frontline firefight or whether it's prevent or protect. So certainly AI in its lowest kind of capacity really can free up some of that burden and make us a lot more efficient and use the few resources we've got a lot more effectively. Certainly in the police, there's a real example of going through an awful lot of CCTV footage, video footage, whether it's facial recognition or whatever. It frees the officers up to be able to get out onto the ground and do more frontline policing. Now, fire service is less clear cut around where we actually can use AI to really see that step change in capability. But Frank and I are kind of really keeping our eyes out now of what can it offer us, how can we do that, and how can we protect our communities better?
Such as, give us some examples of things that AI is doing in Leicestershire.
So I think AI is a new name, a relatively new name. Our mobilising systems have been using a form of AI for an awful long period of time. We just didn't call it AI. So it's looking at areas of larger increase in operational demand, more fires, more people, looking at where our fire cover is and how we can move fire engines in a way to get them in the right place before they're needed. So we've been doing that for an awful long time. It's called dynamic fire cover tools. We probably know that as AI now. But there are lots of other use cases. Certainly within Leicestershire, we use AI to support our recruitment processes now. As a fire and rescue service, we're relatively lean. We're an average size fire service, but we recruit an awful lot of people and we promote an awful lot of people. So we're using variations of Copilot and agents to now sense check our recruitment processes, offer that complete impartiality. Small service, we generally know our employees, and when they apply for promotion, we're using AI to sense check the assessors, not to replace them, sense check and save an awful lot of time and efficiency in our recruitment processes. That allows more of our staff to get back out onto the street and kind of really help prevent fires or respond to fires.
And when they are on the trucks responding to fires, what kinds of AI tools do they have at their disposal to deal with the job, whether it's an RTC, a high-rise fire, domestic fire?
I think in some ways the opportunities are not boundless. That's probably a bit over the top. There's massive opportunity. The tools that we're seeing being used out in the world, the understanding that actually how that could feed into fire, how that could support us, they are massive. In some ways, I think what we're looking to understand before we even get to that problem, because we can get there with the staff, with their specialism, with the support of industry that's out there. I think Callum touched on a really key point though, which throughout all of this, and it's about being principles led in how we deal with the problem. Not necessarily getting really excited by a tool and running and jumping to it, but being principles led. And one of them that Callum touched on there was about AI not replacing the individual. So when we talk about AI from the NFCC's point of view particularly, what we're talking about is actually augmented intelligence rather than necessarily, and it's the same thing, it's changed the language a bit to try and frame how we're wanting to see and how we're wanting to use it. And it's particularly important, I think, in fire is that we are not at any point advocating for these tools to replace human judgment. Mm-hmm. The human has to be at the center of decision making, has to be at the center of the judgment. So however we choose to use those tools, and there are huge amounts there around situational awareness on the fire ground. That could be, I've seen some companies looking at augmented reality, so taking risk information and bringing that into the reality sphere to show where things might be, real-time communication, situational awareness, whatever it might be. The key point is the decision maker, the commander, whoever it might be, the control room operative is making that decision. That fire resource, that prevention intervention, nice bit around there, whatever it might be, has not happened because the computer has said so. Mm-hmm. It has happened because a person who has been trained and authorized to do so has been supported in their decision making. And I think that's really crucial because I think that principles-based approach, it starts allowing us to engage with, a world that is very wide and growing, and as we heard in the last talk, constantly changing and adapting, but engage with it in a way that ensures we maintain our values. And I think at the core of that, one of our key values, fire and rescue, which is absolutely crucial to who we are, is trust. And actually, when we come down to it, our communities, I can't talk about 50 years, who knows what the world will be like, but certainly in the short to medium term, I think still expect us as the operators, the emergency services, to be making those decisions, not simply relying on a computer to say so. Absolutely right and proper. We use that, these fantastic tools to support us, but it must not replace. It must augment. And I think that's where, I think Microsoft got it right with the name of Copilot. It is not the pilot. It is someone to assist and come alongside us, whatever function of fire and rescue it is. So, yeah, without being specific, there's so much opportunity there. But I think how we engage with that opportunity, being values-based, is really critical.
This is the perfect moment to bring you in, Charlie. You're with AWS. You work with the emergency services, and if anyone didn't hear you speak yesterday, your background is as a frontline police officer. So you have that nice kind of crossover where you can see the demand and you're trying to help come up with solutions to meet that.
Yep.
Tell us about the AWS approach to the fire services and your reaction to what the guys have been saying.
So I'm going to say a couple of words first. Human in the loop. Okay. So I absolutely hear what's being said here. And I think fundamentally for us at AWS, we have a wide range of artificial intelligence and machine learning tools, but they have got to be supported with a human in the loop because technology can only go so far. If I just reflect on my own journey into technology, quite simply as a police officer, I didn't have the data and I didn't know what I knew because I didn't have access to that information. And over the last 7 or 8 years, AWS has been working closely, building its relationships, building trust within the emergency services sector to actually see how technology operates as an enabler for the front line, not as a replacement. I'm very firmly in the place of not tech for tech's sake. I was a police officer. I had lots of shiny things. We like to buy shiny things. I don't know if that's the same in the FRS. But we shouldn't be buying technology for technology's sake. We should be looking to see where the problem is and then where technology plays a part in helping us to solve that. And so to answer your question, when we look at the approach that the team and I take and the way that Amazon thinks about its technology, actually it's all around innovation, and it's also around learning from the customer. So we work backwards from a customer to understand their mission, to understand what it is that they're looking to do and how they want to achieve it. Then we start to, with a whiteboard, with some technical geniuses, I'm not one of those, but I'm always supported by them and I'm thankful, is actually looking to see, well, which parts of the technology actually work. We're talking here about data, because you cannot have artificial intelligence or machine learning without data. We've all got loads of data. How do we use it? How do we surface that? How do we then use that vast array of tooling to actually make sense of either structured or unstructured data? How do we pull out the most important information and then make sure that that human in the loop is looking at it to understand the risk that needs to be taken? What that does do is, rather than the traditional approach of going with what I know as a firearms officer, and I've only got so much information in front of me, actually the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning means that we can pull information in from all different data sources to help us to bring the most important data to the front, to enable me to make properly informed decisions myself more quickly, more efficiently, and safely with the extra information at hand.
So Callum, can you just pick up on that? And Frank did touch on it earlier, that kind of situational awareness, firefighter, in the heat of the moment, literally. What kind of data can be pulled in? What kind of AI tools can be there, whether there's a heads-up display in your visor or information relayed to the truck that can help a firefighter on the ground?
So there's a few, again, there's always a few answers to this, isn't there? If you're looking at a firefighter operationally committing, they've got quite a mobile data terminal. It's got an immense amount of data on it, but it can sometimes be difficult to pull that out of a mobile data terminal whilst you're driving under emergency conditions through the streets, tossing, turning around, trying to get through. An AI tool that could present relevant data to a firefighter, primarily would probably be looking at a map, or if it's road traffic collision we're going to, what type of car's involved and where is it safe to cut and where is it not safe to cut. A lot of vehicle safety systems now, particularly with hybrids and electric vehicles, it's becoming not as straightforward to just go and cut a door off. You have to know where it's safe to cut and where it's not to. We've got that information, but surfacing it on the route to an incident can be difficult at times and challenging. An AI tool or interface that would be able to present that to you in a very quick and easy way would be brilliant. And then as an incident escalates, more vehicles arrive, more senior commanders arrive, they'll be looking at the national operational guidance. What do we know about the premises? Where are the risks in the premises, whether that be a large chemical store, a large battery store, vulnerability information. Our community each has unique challenges. Where should we focus our rescue attempts first? AI can play a real role in analysing all this data we hold as a fire and rescue service. Arguably, could you then lay in ambulance service and police service data to get that one holistic view, up to the point where you get a Grenfell type major incident where you have so many people contributing, so many different data sources. I think that's where AI can really, really influence not just fire commanders, but multi-agency commanders to really, really kind of bring into effect that community safety with all the information sources and data sources available, but presented in a way that's usable to a firefighter up to a chief fire officer.
Frank, those are all great examples of things we could do. We could do that. It can do this. What are we actually doing at the moment? Where are we at?
So I think when you say the we is an interesting point, because obviously we're 49 fire services. Someone shout out in the room, you're wrong. It's somewhere in that region, you should probably know better. But is it an individual fire service who are leading the way, doing things? You have within those services, I think that one of the dawning realizations probably for chief officers and senior teams is actually your people are going to be utilizing these tools where they find them and as they find them. And then obviously there's industry as our partners and so on and so forth. I think one of both the challenges and the opportunities with AI is almost it's a democratized tool. anyone can sort of get hold of them, do something with them. I've seen lots of people sort of playing with what they can do with it, and you get great results. That's brilliant because you get innovation at the localized level using expertise, using, we talk about our greatest asset and we'll say data is one of them, but it's still very much people. Fantastic. It's also very much the challenge of going, okay, that's happening. How is that? How do we shape and control that to make sure it's secure? It's, again, within our ethical boundaries, etc. I suppose, therefore, speaking from the NFCC, so the National Fire Chiefs Council point of view, we're doing a couple of things to try and shape this. One thing we're doing straight off the bat is we're trying to look to create an AI register. So what that is, it sounds kind of a bit severe, but it's kind of let us know what's going on. Let us know where you've had successes, where you've found innovative uses for AI. If we're being really mature as a sector, where it's gone wrong, because actually I think people aren't actually very keen to share their failures, and yet it's in failure you probably learn the most. So could you tell us where it goes wrong as well? Maybe we'll let you be anonymized or something. But create this register so that we can understand what's happening out in the field and we can share. We also created, in the process of creating a number of, we call them position statements, think of them as handrails, guidance, that sort of level where we're sort of explaining what to expect, what we sort of suggest as best practice in many ways around these areas. And that's right at the very top level of setting out NFCC's position, which is sort of engage with AI. You can't sort of, as services, bury our heads in the sand. You must do it, right down to an ethical framework. So again, some of the points where we talk, human in the loop, not just utilizing AI because it's fancy, understand why you need it, secure by design, these sort of ethical principles. And then underneath that, again, sort of your more detailed ones. So security, rather than create our own, there's quite a lot of security. So point to sort of, government where it needs to be. That's the standard. That's what we're expecting. But also areas like that's probably not as interesting as the doing. But have we really thought about our procurement? I would, and I don't know if there was any procurement people in the room might disagree with me, but buying a fire engine and buying a TV from a procurement perspective is largely the same process. I'm probably doing a great disservice to my procurement colleagues, but it's a similar process in that it is a standalone item as such. I would argue with AI and what the potential for AI to drift across systems, to learn and do its own thing, it probably requires additional thinking in the procurement realm that maybe we're not ready for. So in many, and then of course we haven't even touched on the data element, which was mentioned. So I guess we're trying to create these guides to say, have you got your infrastructure in place for AI? Are you AI ready by having that infrastructure you need to be able to take the opportunities when they're there? And then hopefully as well, from the NFCC's point of view, gathering the rolling snowball of AI use that's happening across the sector and try and support people to learn from each other, network with each other. We also have a number of working groups, etc. as well. So to try and get that cross-service collaboration going on. So I think that's from the NFCC's point of view, what we want to do and where we want to support. And then from services, it's about, I think it's very much about the services understanding that it is happening already. You've probably already got AI, whether you realize it or not, so many systems do, and be able to get in place what you need to be able to benefit from it and not suffer from it.
I do want to pick up on the data in a moment with yourself, Charlie, but can I just push back slightly? Because the ambulance service and the NHS, they're dealing with confidential patient medical records. The police are dealing with criminal databases, intelligence databases. Generally speaking, the fire service, you may be talking about your data points being roads, buildings, access points. The data's maybe not always as sensitive as those two other services. Could you, therefore, be the service that actually just goes hell for leather and barrels ahead with this?
I think that's probably fair in some elements. In others, we do hold very sensitive data. We have vulnerability where we've identified vulnerable people, where we share with other services, and of course, them sharing with us has to be. If we're utilising AI as well, are they trusting our system not to get into their system, all this sort of side of it? I think one of the real challenges potentially moves beyond fire, and I know we're talking about fire here, but if you look at the government's national strategy, it's very much about integration, it's about data libraries, it's about moving beyond there's your data, there's our data, and actually where we want to get to, I think, is working with our partners, particularly in the emergency service realm, to understand this AI challenge and this AI opportunity, because again, we know that we will hold data that ambulance don't, that police don't, and by all that sort of mix of it, And really, when you leverage it's data hungry, isn't it, AI? What we want is we want to understand where those connections are in those different pockets of data, which we've never really seen or thought of before. And actually, that and that and that together, that is where we target from a fire, from an ambulance, and also, or potentially a single person, all the vulnerabilities come together. Yeah. So, hey, why not? We could be as fire, but I think that the greatest benefit will come when we get as much collaboration and engagement across services and as wide as we can go with that, to really harness the full spectrum of information available to us.
Charlie, data is key to this. There's no AI without data, and it is data hungry, and it's data that is needed quickly, reliably, in life or death situations. These troops on the ground need to know that it's there when they need it. How do we address that?
So I think over the last 2 days, we've heard some really incredible stories of the use of technology in innovative ways. I think the conversation over the last 4 to 5 years has moved on somewhat from my early days when we began the emergency services team in AWS, from what is cloud to why would you not, and where's the greater risk, and the risk approach and risk management. So I think, first of all, we have to look at cloud-based technology and what that is. That's infrastructure on demand, pay as you go, as you need it. Organizations like AWS, cloud-based organizations, have the ability and the funding to invest in the secure, by design architecture of that infrastructure at a global level. We talked yesterday about the resilience of that and why that's important. And for me, in this domain, in the emergency services space, never is that more true. You have to be able to access that information when you need it. Now, the challenge is the public that we all serve or that we have served expect more. They expect things to be as quick as banking or whatever else it is that we do on our phone. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, it's been around for a while. But actually, it's still just being invented. It's being reinvented continually to see what needs to happen, how that needs to happen, and what could be done. Now, Frank, I don't know whether or not you've done a whiteboarding session or working backwards session with the AWS team, but our view and our approach would always be, rather than just buy or procure some cloud, and there is a whole conversation on that I won't bore these guys with, rather than just going and doing that, actually doing something that we in the emergency service arena are not necessarily comfortable with, and that's getting something wrong, failing. So Amazon's culture is very, like I said, innovative, and it's around failing fast, failing quickly. And you can do that safely and securely in a cloud-based environment. You can try things, and if it doesn't work, you stop, you look and see why, you pivot, and you go again. And I am coming to your question on the data. The reason this is important is because actually, until you try that and you know what the problem is that you want to solve with artificial intelligence or machine learning, you can't really know which bits need to connect to things. The world is connected. Space is connected. The ocean is connected. There are sensors absolutely everywhere. And actually, AWS have been working with the Canadian wildfires in 2025 around sensor data, open source information that they could bring into a model to help identify the trajectory of a fire, the path it may go through, where to divert those resources, and a wide range of things. So those sensors and that data, that's really powerful. That's open source data. That's not even our confidential data. That's readily available information that's out there. That's a really powerful tool. But to go back to the question around data, data is everything. Data is absolutely key to the use of any kind of artificial intelligence or machine learning tooling. The more you give the machine learning, the more it learns. That is absolutely true. Does it go and find absolutely everything that you've got in your systems? If you've architected it properly, securely, knowing exactly what it is that you want it to be able to pull data sources in from or exchange from, not only can you do that inside your own organization, but you can do that from a multi-agency sharing perspective as well. I've been in MASH meetings where we're sat around a table with paper and we don't really want to share what we really know. It's slow. It's taking up the time where we could be focused on dealing with the risk. So I think actually, when you look at the power of the artificial intelligence and you look at the data that you're bringing into it, you need to sit and think, well, what is it we really want to do? What are the elements that we can speed up within our industry? and then go do that. And I think, the Canadian wildfire is a really good example of pulling in open source data to help to make decision making quickly.
This episode of the Emergency Services Times podcast is sponsored by MSA Safety, proudly supporting emergency services and first responders on the front line. At MSA Safety, protecting first responders isn't just what we do, it's who we are. We work closely with fire and rescue services across the UK to develop and deliver safety solutions designed to meet your ever-evolving needs. That includes MSA Bristol Firefighter PPE, trusted by services across the UK and beyond, shaped through years of collaboration with frontline teams. It also includes our growing investment in innovation and technology, from the connected M1 SCBA modular solution to our agile, fully managed service model that helps keep crews protected and ready to respond. But for us, safety goes beyond equipment. We believe in standing shoulder to shoulder with the people who dedicate their lives to protecting others, whether it's supporting firefighter charities, backing mental health initiatives, or showing up for community events. MSA is proud to be part of the Emergency Services family. To learn more about our work in the UK and how we're supporting first responders every step of the way, visit www.msasafety.com. With MSA Safety, when you go in, we go in with you.
Can I go to you on that, Callum? Because prevention is better than cure, and it's far better if we can stop a wildfire happening in the first place. We talked earlier about the AI tools potentially available when something's happened and a firefighter is there. But when it comes to the preventative strategy, whether it's something that can stop a Grenfell, whether it's something that can stop a wildfire, talk us through the kinds of things you're looking at.
Yeah, sure. Just before I answer that question, there is some great trailblazers out there that have some working models of everything that we've just been talking about through the our colleagues in Lincolnshire Local Resilience Forum, through some innovation funding from central government, have a tool that uses artificial intelligence that holds all of the services data. As soon as a major incident is declared, all of those firewalls are taken out the way. GDPR becomes irrelevant because it's about saving lives. And I think my job and Frank's job is to kind of access that facility for all of the emergency services across the country with help from our Home Office colleagues or MHCLG colleagues, to make sure the funding's there to really be able to do that. So there's some really good trailblazers out there, but I think it's fair to say we're still embryonic in that and it's still evolving.
Yeah.
When it comes to prevention and protection, I do think there's some real areas of innovation. We use some very traditional models looking at traditional data sets around age, ethnicity, mobility, vulnerability, areas of deprivation, and kind of come up with some very static, very historic risk profiles that we use to then target our prevention and our response activities. Now, you could argue we do that for road traffic collisions, targeting young and new drivers. They're more likely to be involved in road traffic collisions. We use, certainly within Leicestershire, we use VR and AR to really kind of target those, as we've got some academia supporting that's a great way of changing behaviour. What we really need to do is put those data sets into AI, also looking at historic and predictive data of where we could go to really, really fine tune our limited resources. So we're kind of doing it already, but we're doing it in a very human way. Where I see AI being able to transform that is to just dump those data sets in, make sure that we sense check, keep the human in the loop at the end of it to sense check it hasn't thrown out something we're going to be completely against. But that's where we will really look to move forward. And I know some of my colleagues are doing that in a fire protection, so the legislative fire safety side of things. Some colleagues across the country are really, really using that to test their risk-based methodology and also look to the future of where that can direct our, again, limited resources to really get the best effect. So embryonic, but really moving forward all across prevention, protection and response. I think just to summarise, going back to Frank's point, we've got a number of different fire and rescue services. We haven't got that central body yet, such as the Police Digital Service. And I know centrally they're looking at a College of Fire, which would bring that together to kind of really pull it all together, get working products that can be used across all of UK fire and rescue services. So there's a lot happening with the support of government, but I come back to my point, we are stretched organisations that really do need that investment to prime this to get us past the embryonic stage to a kind of world-changing stage that saves people's lives.
Sticking on the preventative side, that was all kind of quite big picture stuff there. For most people, their interaction with fire prevention is the smoke detector in their home. Now, I've got one in my house. It's connected to the Wi-Fi. That's about as fancy as it gets. Other than that, it's basically the same as smoke alarms 30 years ago. I sense smoke, I'm going to make a loud noise. What kind of AI tools are there on the domestic fire protection front?
So I think there's, again, this is probably an industry sort of question of where is there a market for this sort of stuff. From our side, I think the real crucial question there is saying, well, what do we need an AI for on that front, and do we need it? So in many cases, the answer is possibly no. So actually, you're saying, do we need to put, do we want to put a sensor into every single person's house? Well, in many ways, that could help us. But actually, there's other issues with doing that. There's probably privacy issues, so forth. So without drawing an answer, because I don't know, we want to look into it, but not getting carried away of saying, well, we could do that, so we should do that. That's the sort of careful balance we've got to get. On the flip side, there is very much a case of, well, if we recognize someone as a vulnerable person, for whatever way we do that with data and so forth, then absolutely the Internet of Things can tell us, could tell us potentially a great deal. We could have, I remember when I did a safe and well visit, and the safe and well visit, it was post-incident. We had a fire fatality where I was a firefighter, and we'd knock on all the doors around the area because, you do your after, I'm missing the words here, but you make reassurance visit. And one of the ladies we visit was, she was the president of MenCap. Right. So she herself was severely disabled, but her entire house was sort of a model for what could be done with a range of technologies. I mean, she had a guide dog that was able to, and it's going to sound ridiculous, effectively put the washing on. It was quite incredible. Her home was run off Alexa. And of course, within that then is that clear link to be able to say for us to know that there is a vulnerable person there who, if there was a fire, would need rescuing. But of course, her systems that were set up in this house would go as far to tell her what room she was in. Right. And you think, well, amazing. That for us is, turn up as an instant commander, knowing that firstly, there is somebody in that property guaranteed. That helps my judgment of the risk I'm willing to take. Mm-hmm. Secondly, they're vulnerable. So therefore, that tells me, look, and they are in that room. Well, I have my plan in many ways already built, especially if I have some sort of schematic, or we talk about AR or so forth. So I think in that respect, once it comes back to principles led, we've decided we're not just doing it because we can. We've identified the very real need. There's a huge amount of options. I think so that's almost on the individual level in the home, the types of sensors we put in, the type of smoke detection even. Right up to, as Callum mentioned, our systems for actually deciding who gets the visit, the intervention, even down to who don't we give smoke detection to, or that type. We need to have it needs to be a robust method. So it needs to be explainable. It can't again be a computer says it, but at the same time, what AI allows us to do is data sets which would take beyond our capacity with the data analytical staff we have to do, can be done very quickly. So I think that's kind of for us prevention-wise. But then you flip it. We talk about wildfire. There's opportunities around remote sensing and what that might be able to do. I think maybe as in Canada, I don't know, but certainly some places where remote sensing can detect very, very early on, signs of whether it's thermal signatures, whether it's smoke plumes that are nearly invisible to naked eye. And actually, rather than waiting 4 hours, there's a blaze and a walker calls it in. We could be there very quickly and get on top of it. So the scale is huge. The opportunity is huge. I think it's more, again, how do we engage with this really effectively to get the best from it?
Does anyone have any questions that they would like to put to our panel about the use of AI in the fire service?
Will, firefighter with Warwickshire Fire and Rescue. Do you know if there's any use cases around training in the fire service for using AI? So, for example, placing training documents into it, meaning that you could type in a question, ChatGPT style, and it would be able to bring up an answer based on the documents it's given, but also creating maybe tabletop exercise-based things, obviously using the information that it has to generate a training scenario more dynamically.
I saw a great use case it was in Control, and actually it was Hertfordshire, Hertfordshire Control would do it. So a Norwegian company, now excuse the detail, I forget their names, but it was incredible. What this AI did was you would tell it the incident, and it would then create phone calls into Control. So you could tell it, we want to replicate a Grenfell type incident. I therefore want to flood the control room with 20 calls in the next 10 minutes. It asks the details. and it would do it. And you pick up the call, and they ran a scenario for me. They did a car into water with an occupant in it, and the call comes in, and I was listening into the control to take the call. Now, the inflection on the voice, yeah, it's AI, but you already did anyway. But beyond that, the interaction between the control room operator and the person, the AI in water, it was incredible. And to the point where if you started saying something silly like, I don't know, just block up your car with a plastic bag or something, the AI would sort of react probably appropriately of, what are you talking about? What's going on? And what I saw there was thinking, well, actually, with that piece, what would usually take a long time to set up in terms of needing people to call actors on the other end, if you had a new control room staff, a member of staff, you could give them in a single day more really life-critical, difficult calls than they might ever get in sort of 5 years. And it was a truly remarkable piece of technology. I thought that is a fantastic training opportunity there. So, that was a control example, but I'm sure, something equally applicable into the on the ground operations as well would be potential. But it's really worth a look at. It was very impressive.
And Charlie, again, that's something where the cloud is really useful for these
It is.
big data, high simulation training environments.
It is. I've run tabletop exercises and you're very reliant on the bits of paper. But actually, we heard yesterday from Bedfordshire Police that they're doing exactly that. So they're using, in a control room training environment, taking real calls with really realistic, we won't call it bad, realistic data. So not the perfect data set to create the perfect training scenario, but real data from real calls to do exactly that, and to just be able to integrate and it pull out all of the risks and concerns that you might be experiencing in that training environment to help that person make informed decisions, maybe make the wrong decision, and then go back through and educate on how the decision that was taken or the way that they operated in that instant may or may not have been the right decision to do. I think it's one of the most important things. We reflected yesterday on the fact that in any major incident, there's always a reflection on training. Could we have done more with our training? Well, we can always do more training, but do we have the time to do the training? Our resources are stretched. So how can we make the most of a training opportunity and actually leveraging artificial intelligence? Now I can't do it. Artificial intelligence is one of those ways to do it. It is okay. I want to pick up though on the use of Alexa and also pick up on the preventative side of things, because actually there's already things like image detection. So we can use machine learning to learn what is effectively a normal scene. So let's think about a train platform or an airport where maybe there's nothing left, it's not unattended, and then all of a sudden there's a bag. And there's a human, but then there's not a human, but there's still a bag. And you can actually build into that algorithm and that piece of artificial intelligence to say, I'm not normal. I'm a bag, I'm here, nobody's with me, this is a problem, which actually then can alert the security team or whatever it is that is in the train station, airport, wherever it may be, to actually go and act. And I think that's one of the really interesting uses of artificial intelligence, whether it is image detection, which is really, really important, smoke detection, again, whether you can look at, well, we've talked before about how you can use different things to translate text to speech, speech to text, build out chatbots to help to interface with people that might be calling in. I just think actually the use of Alexa in a home is a really interesting one. It's one of my favourite things. But it goes back to those different AI tools, whether it's Lex, Polly, recognition, all of those different artificial intelligence tools that I've just talked about, they all have quirky names, all come together to enable somebody to interact with them, which fundamentally allows us to free up the resources that might be heavily invested in having that conversation to get the information that they need and then actually proactively go out and deal with the mission.
Yeah.
Can I just build on that, Was?
Absolutely.
I think to answer the specific question, in Leicestershire, we are using a certain brand of an assistant pilot that helps us in our systems. And that has a search function on it. So if you were to type in aircraft crash, it would produce your documents and a summary of those documents for you. Now, that is still quite generic, and I wouldn't say it's a finished product by any stretch, but as simple as adding a assistant pilot into your systems and allowing access can help you narrow down that raft of documents that we've all got to fairly decent thing and provide you a summary that you might have to click on then too. So there's some stuff at work. You've just got to let it into the organisational systems, but of course protecting it with the right firewalls around it.
Derek Smith from ISAR. We're currently delivering AI services to Blue Light And the biggest challenge we're finding is they don't have the skills to analyze things like GDPR and AI, combine them to make good decisions about data retention and data sharing. We know how to do that with things like anonymization and pseudonymization. So we're confident that we can use their data safely, but they don't have enough guidance from people like NFCC to make those decisions. They don't feel comfortable making those decisions. You talk about having a steering committee. Will you look at guidance around data sharing and types of data?
Sorry, could you repeat that? Sorry, I couldn't quite hear that last bit.
The whole lot.
No, just the very. We have
Last bit.
we have a something group. Sorry.
Yeah, you're on some kind of committee looking at AI generally, and you talked about looking at what's available and guidance. Are you going to be looking at guidance around GDPR specifically? What data can be shared safely? Anonymization and pseudonymization techniques, which the industry knows about.
Yep.
We know how to do that so that data can be shared, and you can create statistical analysis that an AI will use without having to worry about personal data or sensitive data.
Yes, is absolutely. I think one thing we're really for NFCC is we're keen to learn and hear from everyone. So if someone if you and we chatted earlier, so it's kind of, but if you were to say, this is something that we think would be useful, or fire service come to us, go, this is what we need. That's where we're trying to engage to understand what is useful and where we can. And for those, the NFC does not, it's a charity actually. It doesn't have we don't have any ability to say this is how you should, must, and actually we don't want to do that because the context and the environment of each individual service. But again, it comes back to the principles that underpinning it. Is your approach to doing this in line with those principles? We want to support, so actually clear guidance. And I think NFCC with stuff like that is probably going to point to other places and go, actually, here's the guidance from government or other areas, because they are the ones we have to align with. So we have no mandate to tell services how to do it. What we do want to do is give them and I think fundamentally this comes down to a lot of it, is this isn't a technical issue, AI for fire and rescue, it's a leadership issue. And actually what we're trying to encourage is within the individual services is for leadership to have the confidence to engage with AI appropriately, to build those skill sets. And I think the key point absolutely perfect point was that space to fail in it. I think until you have that environment, that culture that allows that failure, to be all right to say, we will try this, and actually we might have to take 2 steps back and then go again. And that's very difficult with a public service. But I think when we get that, that's where we'll be much more able to engage with industry, particularly who are faster moving. You're your own bosses in many ways. So actually the scrutiny that you have to is available is far less than the scrutiny on a public service. And therefore often when we talk, I think sometimes there's a little disconnect in our worldviews because of what we have to, what we're open to, the scrutiny we're open to, and that trust we must maintain. But I think if we can get that environment where we understand this from a leadership perspective and we're confident in failure, we'll be able to connect more with industry, we'll be able to engage more with the expertise you bring, and that's when we'll start to leverage what we need from you as well. I don't think we want to be experts in the emergency service. We have experts. We want the structure to be able to come and engage with what you have effectively. So we're trying to get there, and that's where we want to go.
Did you want to come in on that?
I really do, because having been in the emergency services, I absolutely understand and recognise that leadership challenge. I get it. I experienced it. It's weirdly how I came into the world of technology. When I arrived at Amazon, the weirdest thing for me was its culture. It's very peculiar. And actually, they do something that's called a two-way door decision-making thing. So we make a decision if we've only got 60% of the information. And we'll go through that decision and we'll do it safe in the knowledge that actually, if we do it and we try it and it doesn't work, we do immediately stop. We close that door, we go again. That is a massive change in culture for an organization. That's literally saying, we've always handled risk in this way. Now, well, we're going to go and we're going to try and we're going to fail things. Amazon's really quite proud of its failures, and it has had failures over the years that have gone on to lead to some of the most incredible products like Kindle or Alexa. All of those have come from things where we've done something and it's not worked and it's been wrong. So I think actually when you look at that leadership challenge, maybe that's the thing that private sector can bring into the conversation is actually how we approach failure, how we think about failure and decision making, and change the culture inside the organisation to be one that is willing to embrace failure and learn from it rather than go, no, that's a really bad idea, let's not try that.
We're nearly out of time, but I want to finish with you if I can, Callum. The emergency services staff love their kit, love their toys. You only need to go to the hall next door to see that. There's the old adage that in a police station you can leave a gun, knife, drugs and 20 grand in cash on a desk and it'll still be there next week. But if you leave a torch on the counter, it'll be gone the second you turn your back. But we're talking about saying to highly trained, highly skilled firefighters, no, don't worry. A computer can do this job for you. How do the frontline staff feel about these gadgets, gizmos, these tools?
So I think the honest answer is whatever gadget and gizmo you get will still need a frontline operator to operate it safely, to check it's doing it right. So actually, I think our firefighters would love all of the shiny new things that they could get their hands on to give it a go and probably break it. With the best will in the world, firefighters are very good at testing things to destruction. To look to improve, not just to destroy willful destruction.
We're the same.
But ultimately, a firefighting environment and the sheer scope of emergencies we face, not only as a fire service, but as a three services, so wide and varied. I think we're about 2,000 years off a robot or a tool being able to do any of it. So I think if it can help them and make them safer, they would embrace it. And if it doesn't work, they would happily show that it doesn't work.
Great, fantastic. What a good note to finish on. Please do join me in thanking Callum, Charlie and Frank.
Thanks for listening. Remember that by taking time to learn from our speakers, you can earn CPD points from our partner CPDme. So do check out the link in the show notes. Our thanks to MSA Safety for their continued support for our podcast and to Smart Digital for producing this series. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to For Every Response, the podcast from Emergency Services Times.